It happened in the time of the Pacha, the great King Fereydoon, slayer of Zahak, the demon king. It happened in the time of the great King Fereydoon, who wandered the world turning every injustice into justice, and every wasteland into a garden of plenty. It happened in the time of the great King Fereydoon, who in the land between Amol and Tamishe built a great castle, a castle that hid the world's secret joy. It was in this time that the great King Fereydoon had 3 fine sons, 3 fine sons, none of whom bore their own name. For the king was afraid that the day that a son of his would bear a name would be the day that that son would go out into the world and seek their own destiny. And so his 3 sons remained nameless. But then there came a day when all 3 of his sons had come of age, a time for them to seek out their own brides, their own partners in life. But the king was not ready for this moment, for still he could not bear to be parted from his own sons. I love my sons, the king said to himself. I love my sons even more than my own memory. How can I part with them now? And so the king placed a condition that he would not allow his sons to marry anyone except 3 daughters who were of the same mother and same father. And so the great King Fereydoon called his vizier, Jandal, to go out into the world and seek in all the kingdoms of the 7 realms 3 princesses who had the same mother and same father. And on his journey, the vizier Jandal came upon the kingdom of Al-Yaman, the kingdom of Yemen, which was ruled by the king Sarv, who had 3 beautiful daughters, all of them of the same mother and same father. But King Sarv was too attached to his 3 beautiful daughters. I love my daughters, he said to himself. I love my daughters even more than my own heart. But alas, the King Fereydoon has come to my kingdom asking the hands in marriage of my 3 daughters for his 3 fine sons. If I refuse the King Fereydoon this, surely his armies will be at the gates of my own kingdom soon enough. And so King Sarv pondered this difficult situation until he came with an answer. He welcomed the 3 sons of the great King Fereydoon, and he would allow them the hand in marriage of his 3 fine daughters, but only on one condition. His sons would have to discover, without being told first, which among his daughters was the eldest and which was the youngest. A difficult feat indeed, for the 3 daughters of King Sarv looked so much like one another, like 3 peas in a pod. It was impossible upon looking on them to find out who was the eldest and who was the youngest. And the King Fereydoon accepted these conditions on behalf of his sons. And so his sons were brought to the court of King Sarv, and they were led into the palace gardens. And there were the 3 beautiful daughters of King Sarv, One of them was standing by a tree. The second was sitting on a divan not far away from the first. And the third was sitting on the grass, pulling the grass from its roots like a child. And there were the 3 sons of King Fereydoon, who were called upon to discover which was the eldest and which was the youngest among these 3. Baradaranam, cried the eldest. Dear brothers, this is impossible. Don't you see how these 3 princesses look so much like one another? How will we ever find out which is the eldest and which is the youngest? Best to leave the court of Sarv at once and to save face, instead of to make fools of ourselves by answering this question incorrectly. Baradaranam, cried the second brother. Oh, brothers, why will we be cowards? And why will we retreat in this way? Can't we see among the 3 that the youngest is verily the one who's sitting on the grass and childishly pulling the grass from its roots, and that the eldest is the tallest, the one who is standing by the tree? Baradaranam, oh, brothers, cried the youngest. My dear brothers, there are many roses in this garden. Why do we have to answer the question? Let the roses in this garden answer this question for us. And so from this garden the youngest son plucked 3 roses, giving 1 to each of them. Now the one who was standing by the tree held to the rose and looked upon its red beauty, and bore a smile as bright as the morning sun. The rose he gave to the second daughter who was sitting on the divan. That princess looked at that rose as if not knowing what to do with it, and tossed it behind her. And the third daughter who was sitting on the grass, when she held that rose in her hand, her eyes welled up with tears, as if she was recalling a poignant memory. And at this sight, the youngest brother turned to his 2 elder brothers, and he cried out, "Oh, brothers, don't you see? It is so simple to see who is the eldest and who is the youngest. The rose we gave to the one standing by the tree, when she saw the rose, she looked upon the rose as someone whose heart was never broken, and only saw the beginning enchantment of love itself. Indeed, she is the youngest among the 3. The one who is sitting on the divan, and when we gave her that rose, she didn't know what to do with it, as one who is between youth and age, and does not know what to do with love. So she tossed it aside. But the one who is the eldest, indeed, is the one who is sitting on the grass. For when she looked upon that rose, she looked upon it with the eyes of someone whose heart was broken many times and had lived many years to experience this." And so the youngest son turned to King Sarv and correctly identified who was the youngest and who was the eldest among his 3 fine daughters. Well, the King Sarv tried to hide his disappointment. "Well done," said the king to the 3 sons of King Fereydoon. "Well done. You will be my guests tonight. And now on this warm evening, I will prepare beds for you in my palace gardens. So you will have the company of the roses and nightingales under the moonlight and stars. This will be your bedchamber this evening." Well, the 3 sons of Fereydoon were charmed at this invitation, and stately beds were placed in the palace gardens of King Sarv. and that is where the three sons slept that evening. But King Sar that evening did not have a moment's sleep. He was sleepless at the thought of parting from his daughters. Now the King Sar, who knew the arts of magic, crept into the garden as the three princes were asleep, and with his magic, with his breath, turned that summer evening into the coldest, most frigid winter. And there in that palace garden in the middle of summer was a garden covered in snow and ice. A palace garden so freezing in its cold that it woke up the three princes from their slumber, and they began shivering in their beds. Baradaranam, O brothers, cried the eldest. Look what fate has given us. It has turned summer into the dead of winter, and we are freezing here. We will surely freeze to death. Let us accept our fate. Let us accept this cruel fate, which first gave us summer and then gave us the bitter cold of winter. Baradaranam, O brothers, cried the second eldest. Why should we submit to this cruel fate? Indeed, we will take the branches from the trees and make a fire, and with this fire we will protect ourselves from the bitter cold of this winter night. Baradaranam, O brothers, cried the youngest. There is no fire and no fate in this garden. All that we have in this garden is the warmth that comes from within each of us. Let us share each other's warmth, and in sharing this warmth, we will endure the bitterest and coldest of any winter. And so the three brothers embraced one another tightly, and it was in this way they survived that cold, bitter winter night. So when the first light of morning came, summer had returned again. All was warm. And the King Sar wandered in his garden, expecting to see the three sons of Fereydoon perished from the cold. And there they were, alive as ever. Once again, King Sar tried very hard to hide his disappointment, for indeed that they had survived these trials meant that he would be parted from his daughters. But still King Sar would not give up. And so he turned to the sons and he said, You are three brave young lads, for you have survived this unexpected winter night in the middle of summer. Such brave lads as yourself deserve nothing better than for a hunting party to be arranged to show your feats with the lance and mace. And so a hunting party was arranged for the three sons, the three fine sons of King Fereydoon. The three finest horses in the stables were given to each of them, and the finest weapons on their hunt. And as the three sons went further into the forest in pursuit of their prey, King Sar from a distance followed them. And with his magic, he turned himself into a fearsome dragon with eyes like bright red coals. And when the three sons on their pursuit of their prey came into a clearing of the forest, there they encountered that fearsome dragon. And when the eldest saw this dragon, he cried out, Baradaranam, O brothers, look at this fearsome dragon before us. Even all three of us together have not the force to overtake it. Let us accept our fate. And while we have sought prey, let us allow ourselves to be prey of this fearsome dragon. We have no other choice. Baradaranam, O brothers, cried the second brother. Why Why will we submit ourselves in such a way, like cowards before this dragon? We have our weapons, and in our fearlessness all together we will overcome this dragon. E baradaranam, O brothers, cried the youngest. It is not with our weapons, or with even our courage, that we will overcome this dragon. We need something else. We need a better courage to look that dragon right in the eye. And in doing so, we will surely vanquish this dragon much better than with our own weapons. And so the youngest son walked before this dragon, and he looked straight into those red coal eyes, and he spoke to those fearsome eyes, saying this: "Why do you try to frighten us? Don't you know that we are the three sons of Fereydoon, who slew the demon king Zahak, the father of all dragons? Why should we be afraid of you?" And once the youngest son uttered those words, the dragon began to whimper and slunk away as if it was a frightened child. And after some time, King Sad returned back to the three sons he had left in the clearing in that forest, returned back to his original form. And he said to them, "O three sons of Fereydoon, I have put you to these three trials, and you have overcome each and every one of them. I cannot refuse you any further the hand in marriage of my own daughters. But I ask you this: when each of you take one of my daughters as your bride, you must make this promise. You must promise me that the way you look on your bride, that bright way you look on your bride on the first day of your marriage, you keep that bright look in your eye towards your bride until the end of your days. Promise me this, and I will allow you to marry my daughters and find my peace in this." Well, the three sons of Fereydoon very gladly made this promise. They each promised the King Sarv that they would love their brides just as much as the first day that they looked upon their beauty and was enchanted by them. And they kept their promise for all their lives. And so the three kings of Fereydoon returned back to the court of their father, and they presented their brides, their three beautiful brides. And the king turned to his three sons, hearing of their adventures, and he said this to them: Now is the time to give each of you a name." And he turned to the eldest, and he said to him, "You I will call Salm. You are under the sign of Saturn. You will always bear the sad wisdom of intellect, of intelligence, of reason." And then Fereydoon turned to his second son, saying this: "You I will call Tur. You are under the sign of the sun, and you will bear forever the impulse to action without which the world can never move. The world can never progress." And then Fereydoon turned to his youngest son, and he said to him, O son, I give you the most precious name of all. You I will call Iraj, and you will forever be under the sign of the moon. You will be the water between fire and earth. You will be the water through which everything will be revealed, everything that is seen, everything that is unseen. And so when the 3 sons of Fereydoon bore their names, it freed them. It freed them to go out into the world with their brides and seek their own destiny. And the King Fereydoon, on that day, found his peace. For now that his 3 sons bore their own names, he knew that though his sons, through their names, would forever live in his heart, would forever live in his memory until the end of his days. And so it was, and so it would forever be, from the beginning of time until the end.